Hi everyone, sorry I'm a bit late. It's my fault. I got various things. We got stuck late and I couldn't get started on time. But speaking of doing things a bit too late, there's a bit of news involving Leeds United. I'm Jack, joined by KC. How you doing, mate?
Fucking fantastic.
I mean, I figured you'd be well on board and very, very, very happy with the way everything is shaken out.
Yeah, the performance, the manager, the director of football, the whole thing. Love it.
So, go straight to news, or do you want to briefly talk about the game itself first?
We might as well talk about the game.
Okay, so
that was a laugh, wasn't it?
After the Leicester game, which I said, if we don't win this, we're down. We then got a bit lucky with the results. So Bournemouth was sort of a second chance of if we don't win this, we're down. Anyway, Bournemouth 4, Leeds 1. Leeds did finally change something to try and make it work. Leeds played in a 3-4-3. Christensen played as the right centre-back, Koch, Cooper, and then a 4 of Ayling, McKennie, Rocker, Harrison, Somerville right, Nonto left, Bamford up top. And for 20 minutes, Leeds were probably slightly the better side?
Yeah. I would say that is a fair assessment.
Yeah, I mean,
we were in their half probably more than they were in ours. I don't think either keeper was really tested all that much, but the game seemed to be under control.
Yeah, and there was a just weird quirk of circumstances. We watched this game with your mum.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how if Leeds concede one goal, they completely fall apart. So anyway, long ball up to Philip Billing.
Well, I will start you slightly earlier than that. Really stupidly, Patrick Bamford has a shot that is saved.
Yeah.
And it all stemmed from that. And the lesson here is never shoot.
That's how shit we are out of how shit we are out of possession is you can't even have a shot.
No, don't just keep the ball. Should we shoot? No, never.
Yeah.
It's within 34 seconds as well.
Is that how quick it was?
It was.
I went back and looked at this goal because there was a person I was really mad at in real time. And having watched it back, I still think they made the wrong decision, but I'm really mad at a different person.
I will say I've got names in my head here. I know the first one.
Yeah, because you were sat there.
Because we were sat there both berating. We will call them Mrs. X and Mr. McKennie. Anyway, but I have a strong suspicion that having watched the replay, you might be mad at the same person as I am. But go on.
Yeah, so long ball up to Philip Billing. He wins header. Fair enough. He's fucking massive. Solanke dribbles away from a few players. It's not great defensively, but they sort of force him away from goal and into a less dangerous area. Pull back to Billing. Cooper makes a good block. All of that is fair enough. As that ball is being blocked, Weston McKennie was stood on the edge of the box with Christensen at the back near Christie in a decent position to sort of deal with it. But Weston McKennie sprints back to the 6-yard line towards Christie, leaving this giant hole on the edge of the box where Jefferson Lerma has all the time in the world to pick his spot and finishes it well. Now, in real time, I was just shouting, why the fuck has Weston McKennie sprinted back to the 6-yard line? Now, having watched it back, Christensen isn't actually that tight to Christie. Judgment call. The guy who's on the edge of the box or the guy who's 8 yards out. I can see how you go for the guy who's 8 yards out. I'm okay. You know what would make him not have to make that decision whatsoever? If Luke Ayling wasn't fucking walking back. Fuck Fuck me. This is one of the big things. Luke Haley, God, he always gives his all for the club. He's been such a hero, all of that. That was fucking pathetic. That is, I would have, if I watched that replay back at half time, I'd have subbed him and that'd have been that. He's like, I cannot fucking believe what I was watching. He wasn't like, I know he was playing further up the field, but he wasn't playing like right forward.
He'd not been moved to the right wing yet. He was still a wing back. And by the way, yes, that absolutely was the person I was also thinking of, because you're just watching in the corner of the screen going, wait, why is Luke Ayling 25 yards further forward than every other defender?
Mm.
He's just so massively out of position. I
can live with someone being out of position. Mistakes happen. Try to get back, though.
I think there is the moment when he sees it going towards Lerma, he starts running.
Yeah.
And oh no. But yeah, it was too little, too late. Sorry, just to timestamp for this, it is Arsenal 2, Chelsea 0.
Oh, I've got it on Sky Go, which will be about a minute behind. I'll see that second goal shortly. First goal, Ødegaard was lovely.
It's an excellent result for us because obviously it keeps Chelsea in the relegation fight.
Yeah.
And we need all the help we can get.
I always think it's important to say because I put on Twitter, like, what the fuck is McKennie doing? I might not have phrased it like that, but basically that's what I said. And now I understand, and having seen it back from a wider angle. In fact, I think I did put on our Twitter, I'd need to see it back on a better angle, like to give myself a bit of wiggle room. But I fully believed what I was saying. I think I was just giving myself, some hedge to back through. So, yeah, I still think McKennie. Oh, there's the 2-0. There we go again. I still think McKennie, because of where Christensen is, I think McKennie would have still been better staying on the edge of the box. But I understand the decision. That was making a judgment call, and it went against him. The thing Ayling did isn't a judgment call. That was just fucking lazy. I am aware of the irony of me as a fat bloke calling a professional athlete lazy. I don't mean physically. It was in his head. He thought, I don't need to chase back here. I thought I'll get away with it.
Yeah, it's an issue that in terms of McKennie's positioning, it's an issue we've had going back to Jesse Marsh, where either Adams and Rocker would be too far forward and not get back and not be able to get back at all, or they would fall into a line and there would just be a line of 6 and a lot of space at the edge of the penalty area. It's something that's happened week after week. And it is about positional discipline. It's something I have to talk about my kids' team with. Look, and I know the stakes are slightly different here. I understand that you've assessed the situation and seen that, Christensen might not be doing his job, but you still need to do yours, and that is defend the edge of the penalty area. Or in Luke Ayling's case, get back at all.
I suppose that was very much a Bielsa thing, wasn't it? You know what your job is. But the problem with that was it was so rigid that when someone really did actively screw up, it broke everything. So we have seen this a lot. Leeds score 1 goal. As soon as that 1 goal went in, everyone watching the game was saying, we'll fall apart now. You can just see it coming. We have kept conceding goals in bunches, and this was no different. An actively bad corner from Christie. Overhit, straight to Meslier. No one challenging him. No pressure. Flap. 2-0. No. When it drops to Lerma, no one's on him. There's little tiny other things wrong, but no, it's just shit goalkeeping. And the poor lad, I genuinely, I feel sorry for Meslier. I really do. His head has gone. You need to take him out. You need to put Robles in, because I know he had a decent game against Leicester, but that is the exception. He has had maybe 7 of the last 8. You could say he's had bad games. You can't just let it ride like that. I mean, obviously the levels are different, but we have seen it before when we had different keepers. You know, when we had Wiedwald and we had to drop him. When we then had Lonergan came in and we had to drop him. And that's how Peacock Farrell got in and all of that.
If you remember, and this is going way back to when Paul Robinson came in, was a very flappy goalkeeper at times, because again he was a young goalkeeper that was playing in front of a very porous defence.
Yeah.
You know, it happens, and it really does affect your judgment. And again, you look to the Leicester game where we said he had a better performance, and that's because most of what he had to face was shot stopping. And I think, well, unfortunately, we'll get to the fourth goal. But he is on the whole a very good shot stopper, and shot stopping is a very instinctive, an instinctive action, as opposed to when you're dealing with crosses or you've got someone running at you and you're making a longer term decision in terms of, do I come, do I stay, do I punch, do I catch, and it's those decisions that go when you lose your confidence.
Yeah. By the way, it's 3-0 Arsenal. Because above all else, we are right about Frank Lampard. So yeah, it's gone. Meslier, his head's gone. Like, he's about to face Man City away. I think it's just time. He needs a break. But I did say, if you get one before half time, Bournemouth aren't good, cannot defend. Like, they're not good at it. If you get one before half time, we saw at Ellen Road that they can be a bit fragile. I mean, they were 3-1 up and cruising. We scored a goal and they've kind of fell apart. And we not only got one, but we got a really nice one. I think it was Harrison brought forward. But have we already switched to 4-4-2 at this point?
I mean, as I'm looking at the goal now, Somerville is also in a very central area, and Luke Ayling is the third furthest player forward.
Well, we probably have then, because we noticed it in real time. Basically, Leeds went to a 4-4-2. Harrison dropped from left wing back to a pure left back, and Ayling moved forward to like an out-and-out right midfield role, which looked very odd and lopsided, but that's what we did. And Harrison brought the ball forward down the left, out to Nonto, who they don't close down. Nonto puts in a fantastic cross. Bamford's got away from his marker, free header, and admittedly, it did surprise me because of recent events. He just very calmly heads it in the corner in the way that an informed striker would. It's a good finish. It's just a good goal. But from there, other than from one corner when it's already 3-1, where Koch had one saved and Nonto had one saved, from the moment we got it to 2-1, did we ever really look like scoring?
I'd say the only other chance was Nonto had that header that he should have hit the target with.
Oh, shit. Yeah, no, you're right. That was at 2-1. That was the big chance. I forgot about that. That was crossed to the back post. Ayling heads it back across. And Nonto heads it wide, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he's probably got a bit more space. I don't know if he's a bit worried about the challenge coming in, but I think he's actually got more time than he realises for that.
Yeah. No, you're right. That was a huge chance, actually. It just slipped my mind. So yeah, Nonto misses that very big chance. And you just, again, we aren't particularly playing well, but whenever it's 2-1, you've got a chance. And you're just thinking, push on, put them under pressure, don't do it silly.
Well, I'll tell you what, before moving on then, it's now half-time, you've gone in and you've got yourself somewhat back into the game, you've given yourself a chance. Are you making any changes at that point?
Well, I try not to do wise after the fact, although let's be right, we all do things like that. At this point, when we're in that 4-4-2 where Ayling is the right midfielder, I did say in the pub, like, put Somerville right midfield. If Somerville is going to end up right up with Bamford, or even if Nonto's going to end up right up with Bamford, either way, if Ayling's going to be basically playing as a right midfielder, I can't see a reason not to bring on like Rodrigo immediately. Put Rodrigo up with Bamford and play Nonto and Somerville wide.
Yeah, I think for me at this point, and the one thing I've got to give Gracia credit for, he made a tactical change to this game before the game, and to an extent, it was working up until the goal, and they collapsed. And
Which we have said that a few times, haven't we?
yeah,
The number of games we've lost, where we've lost by, and not just lost by a distance, and said, "You literally were better side up until the goal." Even Arsenal, the Arsenal away game, we weren't the better side, but we'd had as many chances as Arsenal up until the goal, and then they just battered us.
Yeah, so I've got to give Gracia credit there. He made the switch to the back three to start with. We have spoken many times about playing Harrison as a wing back, and I quite like Harrison and Nonto playing together. It's a very attacking left-hand side.
Bit suspect defensively, but that's sort of a trade-off, isn't it?
Of course it is, because Jack Harrison has spent very little time in his professional career ever playing as a wing back. But I think for me, once you get to the point where you're looking at the team, and this is one of the issues I've had with Bielsa many a time when it came down to injuries and stuff, is you've now got this setup where you've got a right back on the right wing. You've got a winger who just a few days before had played a very good game on the right wing, is now playing at left back, and your right winger who started this game is now playing as striker.
Yeah.
So you're kind of all over the shop, and I did feel with one substitution, I thought you could have
moved
switched that around. Whether and again, there's an argument whether.
So would you have been Firpo on for Ayling? Harrison goes to the right wing, or left wing, and Nonto goes across either way. Or Somerville goes. It doesn't really matter which one. I think back and Harrison up.
I think at this point it is only one sub, and there's an argument as to whether it's Firpo, which is the obvious one, because he would be that's the only one where you've not got a natural left back on the pitch. The other positions you've got players for that role.
Yeah,
you could have brought Rodrigo on to play with Bamford, and you go to Ayling playing as a left back and just.
I must admit, I don't think you could play Ayling left back, and from what I saw of Christensen when he was there, I don't think he could have either.
And again, maybe Aronson, because he likes Aronson. It's not the change I would have made, but
what he makes, for what it's worth, is 0 changes. Although Verba does replace Cooper in the 34th minute because Cooper went off injured.
So again, that's one of our sub breaks used. One of our precious substitution breaks has been used.
Not that it affects us, of course, for this discussion, because we're discussing half time, which doesn't count as one.
Yeah. We did also bring up the concept that maybe he thinks they'd roll over. So by the time it comes to the Man City game, we will have like 5 substitution breaks that we can use. But unfortunately, that is not the rule. But anyway, he perseveres with the team as is.
Yeah. Then there's not much in the game. They're better than us, but we're not looking amazing. Third goal, long kick from Neto. Verba, as far as I can tell, just falls over. Ouattara's in behind down that right-hand side. He looks good, by the way. I haven't really seen a great deal of him. He looks a good player. But this pullback isn't particularly great. Cock's stretching for it. If Christensen gives him a shout, Cock can leave it and Christensen just clears that ball and there's no danger. I have to assume that Christensen didn't give him a shout. So Cock stretches out a toe, just taps it straight to Solanke. Good informed striker, scores. That's the game. Must-win game and you're dead. We have that one corner where Cock has an effort, Nonto has an effort, 2 good saves. But we never really look like doing much. I mean, that goal of Solanke's is 63rd minute. On the 70th minute, Forshaw comes on for McKennie. Rodrigo for Bamford. Again, I know that we're in the shit, but we're 3-1 down. in a game where you have to get something. Instead of bringing on an extra attacker, he takes off Bamford and replaces him with Rodrigo instead of playing them both. Very negative for me. And we just, in that, the game just became... I mean, in the ground, it will have turned into something different. When we were watching it, it turned into gallows humour and just taking the piss out of how bad we are. In the stadium, it didn't really come through away at Fulham. It did in this. You could hear all the chants for Orta to go. You could hear all the chants against the board. You could hear the chants for Marcelo Bielsa. The last goal doesn't really affect anything, so I won't dwell on it too long. But Semenyo shit shot straight down the middle, and Meslier basically throws it in the net.
There's also the build-up for the pass. Robin Koch just seems to sprint 2-3 yards across away from Semenyo, and then he's just absolutely nowhere near him.
Yeah.
But like you say, at this point,
that point I had switched off. At that point,
it's as near as makes no difference. The daft thing is, and again, I'm not getting into all the changes I would have made. We, like you say, we make the double sub. Quite why, when you're in a relegation battle and you're chasing a game and you have at least 2 players on the bench who can play as a striker, 3 probably 4. You can go Greenwood. You've got Rutter, Rodrigo, Aronson. Like, you have all these players who are equipped to play as a striker, and only one of them comes on.
And the one that does replace as a striker.
Yeah, like for like. So the system never changes. Look at this point of the season, and I fully agree with Bielsa, the principle that if you start chopping and changing your tactics, it'll leave the players with no confidence in the plan. At some point, though, you've just got to think, look, it does not matter how we try and get goals from this game. We just have to. I wouldn't have cared at that point if it's right. Pascal Struijk, get up there. We are going to launch balls up to you, and we are going to have Nonto and we're going to have Nonto and Somerville, either side of you, and we're going to hope they get on the knockdowns.
You're basically saying stick like big Chris Samba up front.
Yeah,
I can't think what manager did that. No. Maybe it'll come up later.
And that's absolutely not how I want football to be played. I am one of the thousands who have now been spoilt by magical football and want high pressing, high tempo football.
Yeah.
When you're 3-1 down in a relegation scrap, I don't care if Illan Meslier smashes one and it bounces over the keeper and goes in. I just want a goal. And we seem to do very little to actually try and create goal-scoring opportunities.
I'm not sure that we do little to try and create things. I mean, we do, but I think it's because they've just gone. They're incapable. I mean, the thing Ali says here, I think, is true. The problem is a weak pairing in midfield. Everyone wins the midfield battle against us. We need battlers in there, preferably 3 of them. I think you're right. Even if Rocker and McKennie are capable, they are both capable of being better than they are right now. But it isn't working, and I completely agree with Ali there. I think there are a million problems, but right now that is a big one, which makes it all the more stunning to me that at no point have we gone with a 3, apart from the Fulham away FA Cup game.
The only way I see a 2-man midfield working like this now, well, ever with those 2, is that they are both holding midfielders in front of a back 3, and that is their job, to sit in front of your 3 central defenders, and then your attacking threat is your 2 wing backs, your wingers, and your striker.
Yeah, you let everyone else go.
Yeah, because
that's basically Antonio Conte's formation.
Yeah. Which again, spectacular.
That's what he does.
And again, it's not how I would set it up, but if that's the team you're giving me, and those are the 2 central midfielders you're giving me to work with, that's the only way I see how it works. Because as good a passer as the ball as Mark Rocker is, he does not have the legs for this. And the amount of times they've been caught upfield and they don't have the legs to get back.
And
At some
because
point,
Rocker's getting desperate, by the way, you can see it in the way he's playing. Where at the start of the season he would have played a pass, he is now turning down passes and trying to turn and play a more complicated pass because we're not creating out. So he's desperate to create something, which is leading to bad decisions, which leads to him losing the ball more than he used to. And it's just not working.
It's in the last couple of games, the one at Leicester was
The
quite bad.
pirouettes,
and he did it again against Bournemouth, and you were there going, you had the 5-yard pass in front of you there, just play that.
Yeah,
like,
you
that
did
is
the bit.
fine.
You actually did it right first, and then you
Yeah.
added more and ruined it.
And I never thought I'd be comparing someone who was as highly touted as Mark Rocker was earlier in his career. But then you see Adam Forshaw, sort of, he knows how to do the turns out of danger, simple pass. But again, the issue is, I look at any of our midfield options. If you were going to make it a 3, like, what central midfielder adds dynamism to that? The only one I can think of, and I don't want him in the middle of the park, is Brendan Aronson.
There's some kid. There's a kid that plays in 21s. Like, what's like Jabby or something? I don't know. There's a thing here that Ali said. Rocker is putting awful balls in the box too, wasting our chances from set pieces. His set pieces have not been good, but I'll tell you what, they've been better than the people who were taking them beforehand. We have had chances from a couple of set pieces recently, which is more basically we've only got Sam Greenwood in the entire squad that can actually take a good set piece, and Rocker is probably second. That is not me praising Rocker's set pieces. It's me burying everyone else's.
I mean, at any point when
we miss Tyler Adams so goddamn much, I think that is bigger than. I think that is better than Ali saying not better than Greenwood. Yes, that's what I said. I agree. I said everyone except Sam Greenwood. The entire point, we've had missing Adams so much. I can't believe how reliant we were on him. I didn't realise quite how bad that was, because I think that's more important than, by the looks of it, that's been more important than going from Marsh to Gracia. That's been more important than anything. Because you look at the performance data, not the results, because the results we still got some good ones. The performance data, literally the day he goes away, it's off a cliff.
You really noticed the effect he had in the games when we were sort of back to the wall, because he was our all-action central midfielder who made the tackles, made the blocks, broke up play, was a bit of a dickhead as well. He sort of fulfilled the Mateus Click role of, how can I stall the game and wind people up? Yeah. But for the most part, with the style that we played, we were typically a team on the front foot. So more often than not, you'd think he was a bit quieter. But yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you at this point, that I hadn't realised how much he did, even in those games where we were on the front foot. He provided so much energy to that team.
Yeah.
And
he could actually fucking tackle.
Yeah,
McKennie can sometimes. Rocker will try and tackle, but he can't tackle. He tackles like Paul Scholes. He doesn't shirk him; he just misses the ball.
Well, that was it. I mean, when we went to that pre-season friendly against Blackpool, we were looking at the tackles he was putting in. You're there going, mate, this is the first pre-season friendly of the year. I'm putting you down for 10 yellow cards at least this season.
Yeah.
And then as it goes, he sort of eased up from there.
Well, I mean, it says a lot just as a thing on our bets. Opening game of the season, Wolves at home. My bet is Mark Rocker to get booked. Like, that's what he looked like. But there's a few there's more than one in the comments talking about it. But yeah, there was no proper recruitment backup in case Adams was injured, similar to KP, and he's right, because last season if you look at the performances again, although there were bad ones all the way through, you look at when did Calvin Phillips get injured, and it goes down. And even at the end, when he wasn't playing particularly well, it improved when he came back. And just the lack of squad building is such a massive problem. And it appears that finally, after a while, the club agrees. Because Victor Orta has left his role as director of football by mutual consent. And although there is blame apportioned all the way around, he is the main man to blame for this going wrong.
He builds the squad. That is his job. He works with the manager, and judging by a number of our transfers, sometimes does not work with the manager, and brings in the players for the positions we need. Hooray! But it's tough to ignore at the moment. Obviously, the position we've been in for the last couple of years, when we were screaming out for a backup striker, we were screaming out for depth at central midfield. Another left back.
What do you mean, another?
Junior, look, listen, Junior Firpo was there.
Some of the time.
You can't deny
he was injured half the season.
Yeah. But it's, you look at this squad, and look, I'm fully aware this wasn't Gracia's team. That being said, the model again that you buy these players in, and call them projects if you want to. You buy these players in, get them on a 3 or 4 year contract, and try to turn them over in 2 and double your money or whatever. How does that work on a £35 million player? Especially when you don't play him.
Well, basically, for that to work on a 35 million player, they have to be a fucking world beater.
Look, it absolutely works with Rafinha because he
turned out to be a world beater.
He turned out to be fantastic, but at 18 million by Premier League prices, that's pretty cheap for the quality.
That's one thing. Just you mentioning that, it's a thing that I wanted to bring up on here, and I know I have said it, but I can't remember if I've said it on here. That is one thing that surprises me about how much people hate Matt Locker. Matt Locker's a £10 million player in the Premier League. That's meant to be a backup.
Yeah, that's...
You know what I mean? He's on decent wages. But I think if Matt Locker had the exact same performance level, but not been starting every week, started some off the bench, I think everyone would be going, well, he's not been good, but nah. Rather than he is but someone everyone hates. I just think it's interesting because you're saying 18 million isn't that much. And we have got, look at the players that we said. Sinistera was, roughly that money, wasn't he? He was about 17.
Yeah.
And he has been really good, but he's made of glass. We gambled on a lot of players and they just weren't the right ones.
No. And I think one of the big issues has been how, since we got to the Premier League, how many players have we bought that played in the Premier League?
I can probably find exactly that. Because I have a tab open from LUFC data, which I believe his actual name's Chris Taylor, isn't it? And he has every transfer on his website that you can search for as you can search Victor Orta and it'll bring up every single transfer, with him there. So since the Premier League, technically Helder Costa is one and John Kevin Augustin, but they were both done in the Championship. As was Melier, wasn't he? Because he was on loan that season. As was Harrison. So, in that case, it is, most of them have played.
But I mean, as in prior to their arrival, who had Premier League experience?
Right. No.
Because right now, as I look through this team, it's Joel Robles,
Daniel James.
fair. So we're at 2.
Daniel James.
With a full year.
That had played specifically in the Premier League. It's Joe Robles and Dan James.
You know, I fully, as a Football Manager player, I am fully on board with signing young players or projects to get them playing and sell them on for profits. I can't say I'm against that idea, but you need to supplement your squad with players that maybe you're not looking to turn over, that you're probably going to keep longer term, but who have some knowledge of the league at that point, that have some experience. There is nothing wrong with signing a 30-year-old footballer. You're not going to make a profit on every player, and that's absolutely fine. If we'd have gone out and bought a 30-year-old central defender or a 29-year-old central midfielder who'd played a few years in the Premier League,
well, although he isn't
absolutely fine.
Although he's by no means perfect, the example we used at the time was Craig Dawson, wasn't it?
Yeah, like
we were just saying, like someone like that, just to be in your squad. He don't necessarily have to start every game, but those sorts of people, and that's what we're missing. Well, it's one of many things. But so Orta's gone. We have no idea who's going to replace him. By the way, that's probably more important than who replaces the coach.
Well, that as well is very much going to be a thing that comes up in the summer, because it entirely depends on the ownership model and who's in charge.
Fair point here from Bremner's Ghost. Experience prices look at, like, I know it's a different era of football, but bringing in Chapman and Strachan.
Yeah.
We're missing those sorts of...
Yeah. Look, and again, you look at the players that left who, Pablo was in there. Premier League experience. One of the few, as it turned out. We let experienced players go to bring in younger players who typically were joining us having not played particularly well for where they'd come from.
Yeah, well,
Junior Firpo came to us because he had not done well at Barcelona.
Yeah, we sat the Orta's project, reclamation project. We have very few times where we've signed the teams, and some of that in the Premier League you have to do. Go out and get someone else's best player. Now, at our level, we're not going to do that to Premier League teams, but you can do it to teams in Europe. Like, I don't know if he's actually the best player, but going and getting Sinistera, you're going and taking one of Feyenoord's best players. Cool. Rafinha was taking one of Rennes' best players. We don't seem to do that. We haven't seemed to do that nearly enough. Going out and taking someone who has been, like, really good. Like, even though, and I admit to not knowing loads about him, but by the looks of it, having looked into him, what Bournemouth did in January when they got Dango Ouattara was go out and get Lorient's best player. You sort of need a bit of that. And I think that Orta, unfortunately for him, so obviously there are good things in there, but I think he was trying to be way too clever. And then unfortunately, because he seems to be so all or nothing with his decisions, like Bielsa is an all or nothing decision that worked. And then switching from that to Red Bull football is an all or nothing decision that didn't. And unfortunately, he has to carry the can for that, and he has now. Overall, when you think, I mean, it's a bit close right now. When you think of Victor Orta at Leeds, what overall do you think will be your sort of overall grade? God, I said overall a lot then.
I mean, overall, I've got to think.
Yeah.
It's probably a C, because there is a number of players who, let's be right, we never heard of or knew very little about, who were good players, and for some reason or another, like I would say it would be very harsh if you said Samu Saiz was a bad signing. I don't think it worked out, but
it didn't work out in the end. But we paid like $3.5 million. He was really good for a year, and then he was still pretty decent for most of half a year.
But and his head went.
And his head went, and then we probably got $1 million or so back.
Yeah, like I think if you said Samu Saiz was a bad signing, I'd probably take issue with that. You know, the best example will probably be Gianni Alioski, of someone I can't say I knew anything about, who rocked up as part of a number of signings, and with his faults as a player, it was well loved, was a regular most weeks under various managers.
Yeah, and played not every game, but you could go as far as saying week in, week out. By the looks of this, according to this, he was 3.2 million. He played basically week in, week out for 4 years.
Mateus Klick's
That's a bargain.
Mateus Klick's another one. You know, obviously you've got to include in there that he had his issues with Christensen.
Yeah.
But under Bielsa was his most trusted player. You know, no one played more than he did. But you then have to contend with the fact that we spent £25 million on Dan James, which was absolutely ridiculous amounts of money.
And if that was a thing that Bielsa was obsessed with, which may well be true, it sounded like it probably was.
Yeah,
he has to be willing to say no. When it was 7 to 10 million, I was fully on board, but now it's 25, and I'm not anymore.
Yeah, and you know, the biggest thing that in terms of transfers that will that was the downfall for him, Jean-Kevin Augustin.
Yeah, like, let's be honest, that is gross incompetence. Like, you would be well within your rights to have sacked him purely for that one.
Now, again, I don't know in terms of the legalities of this, because the whole thing during COVID seemed very odd. That the prime example was that Leo Messi's contract clauses were not upheld because of the dates, and we
couldn't sign Jack Harrison from Man City and had to take him on loan for an extra season with $3 million added to the fee because the clause expired because the season ran long.
Yeah.
That's why I was surprised. That's why I genuinely, when I first heard about it, thought we were going to win that case.
But again, it very quickly became apparent that Bielsa didn't fancy him. So to gamble so much, and look, if you'd have paid a high fee, just a high loan fee for him, without it's a different story all of a sudden. But
Eddie Nketiah,
you see what we're on the hook for now is down to that contract.
Yeah, 40 million for what was it, 48 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot. Well, obviously, Bielsa did sign off on that deal, and I'm sure, and he will have done because he signed off on, or he did do that. But what he'll have done is seen the videos we saw when he was a stone lighter.
Yeah.
You know, like, because when you saw those videos, he did look good. That is obviously the worst one. I've seen lists going around on Twitter and stuff that have like, oh, all of these players are failures. And there's a lot of them where they're saying things like, on the failures list, they'll have like Oliver Sarkic and Balboa and Hugo Diaz. And you're like, no, Chileno had gutted the academy. We needed bodies. They came in, they cost sod all, and then they left. Those players aren't bad signings, nor are they good signings. They're just signings.
No, they were designed to be there for a couple of years to allow
the 18s
the under 18s to step up into an actual team.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, the players like Dario Meadows and Oliver Sarkic and that, like they've not really gone on to do anything. But
by the way, Dario Meadows, I forgot that he existed. Wasn't he a youth loan? Was he the youth loan from Roma?
yes, he was. And there were plenty of those, but it did also allow a number of our players to step up and get closer to our first team.
Yeah, and in that list of all of those kids, those kids that were like nothing. You didn't really know whether they were going to do something, whether they were really going to be involved, whether they were just there as makeweights. You only really needed one of them to be any good for it to be worth it, and Pascal Strout probably made that worth it. There's a couple of other ones like Itaguchi didn't work out at all. We ruined that poor boy's career, but we made a profit on him.
Yeah.
There's odd ones like Kibitsky did not work at all. Lawrence de Bock, that was a pretty awful one.
There's so many you can go because you look in that time and the Cellino era had been so weird.
Yeah.
Between that first year where in my head we had about 30 loanees, half of them didn't even play. Zan Benedicic was fucked from about game 2.
Yeah.
Edgar Chani apparently was a professional footballer. Who knew? The club was the club wasn't in a state, but it was going nowhere.
Yeah.
We needed to try something. And do I think signing the man who, what's he done? He won the league with Apoel Nicosia. Let's give him a go. Probably not the best shout, but not by far.
I mean,
he wasn't the worst appointee.
For about 4 months, it looked like it was really going to work.
Yeah, and then we played someone who finished in the top half of the table, and it all fell to pieces. The one thing the one thing you can never take away from him is the fact that man went, why don't we go get Marcelo Bielsa? Or why don't we try?
Yeah, and that is his defining thing. And it doesn't make... If you honestly are praising him as like, how well did he do? In that sense, it doesn't cover for everything else. But in 10 years, when I'm looking back at it, that might cover for everything else. Once I've got distance and I'm less annoyed about it all, I might be looking back at it going, yeah, but without him, we don't get Bielsa. And that's the best thing I've ever seen.
And again, I know you have to take the whole picture. You absolutely have to. If you stop at promotion, they got Bielsa in and they backed him. Yeah. They got a striker that he wanted to work with. We got a left back in who seemed like a really good signing at the time in Barry Douglas and just didn't work out for us, but was, a good signing. He was given what he needed, certainly in the Championship. We went out and in the Championship, bearing in mind, still not that long previously, we decided to spunk £1 million on Luke Murphy. It was like, Leeds are back. We were regularly spending fees to get players in at this point that were in excess of £1 million. Yeah. We committed to spending £15 million on Helder Costa. And again,
that's another one of the ones. I've seen him on loads of lists as complete failure. Overpaid, yeah. But he did a lot more than people remember in that Championship promotion season. First season in the Premier League, he did all right. And as we say, 15 million now, he's a squad player. Yeah. He isn't a great signing or anything. Don't get twisted, but I don't think he's like a failure.
No, absolutely not. And again, like you say, it's one of those.
There's something weird going on there with this bit of... Judging by the comments. I've also, mind you, I'm seeing lists with Bamford on as a failure. It was 7 million. We scored enough goals in the Championship that we got promoted, and then scored enough goals in the Premier League to get in the England squad. For 7 million, that's not a failure. Yeah. It might be very, very much incomplete and might be fucking infuriating at some points when you're watching him, but it's not a failure of a signing.
No, there's a lot that he will be hit over the head with, and some of it quite rightly. You cannot say after our first season in the Premier League we've recruited well. You just can't.
No, I think that really when you're looking at him, you're probably looking at him in two halves, aren't you?
Yeah.
Once you get past that first Premier League season, I think you can then say from then on, he has done a bad job.
Yeah. First season, he recruited. Off the top of my head, there was the loan deals that were made permanent, and then there's Rafinha, Koch, Llorente, Rodrigo come in, and again, there are certain failings with all of these players. Bizarrely, in our worst season back so far, Rodrigo has probably been our second best player. Diego Llorente and Liam Cooper formed a really solid partnership that first season. Every now and again, there'd be a suicidal pass in there from Llorente, but for the most part, good, solid Premier League defender as he looked. Robin Koch, when he got fit, solid-looking Premier League defender. Rafinha, best player in the world. Fantastic. Yeah.
There's a comment here from Ali that I want to bring up right quick. I suspect Orta just looks on a database of play stats without going to watch them play and see whether they have some fight in the game. I believe that there is a thing that he does the most air miles of any of them. So I think that he does go and watch him play. But what I think is he's not good at judging those that. And I don't think he's good at judging a player's personality when he talks to him.
Yeah.
I think that we get to the same point just in a different way. I think he looks at how good they are technically and stuff, and he sees, Mark Rocker's progressive passing stats and things like that. But he maybe doesn't see, well, how come then, even though we had those at Bayern, how come they never gave him a shot? And maybe it's because he just doesn't quite stand up to it enough. And he doesn't quite have, for lack of a better term, the fucking guts to do it.
And there are many positive qualities I see in Brendan Aronson.
Yeah. Well, his pressing stats are off the charts, and he was recruiting for Jesse Marsh.
Yeah. That man does not have the physicality for this level right now. No. Now, again, whether he has a Jack Harrison summer, puts on 15 pounds of muscle, and has a really attractive girlfriend. I don't know about Brendan Aronson. But whether he can come back to the Premier League and reach that level that he needs to, but again, he's not up to it. He does not stand up to the physicality of it.
No, he needs a stone in muscle, doesn't he?
Yeah. The one you can look at this. Well, I suppose there's two that I would say he's got right this season. Tyler Adams has been a fantastic signing. Don't compare him to Calvin Phillips; they are not the same player. No, but Tyler Adams was a really good signing, and the other one was in January was Max Verber, who was very needed.
And I know that they signed him in a way that they didn't mean to, but I think you've got to give him Nonto.
Yeah,
as well, and again, I am willing to give him. I am still willing to give him Sinisterra, even though we did have injury problems at Feyenoord, because again, at this in the Premier League, 17 million, that was probably a risk worth taking.
Yeah, I mean I think, but here comes the other side to that is that you think, oh well, we went out and got Nonto. But we did also have the arrogance of thinking, well, we'll wait till January to sign him. because I'm going to bring in Cody Gakpo. And that was
Yeah.
never going to happen. It became very clear very quickly. He
Well,
wasn't
can you
going to
remember
join...
when that story came out? Oh, we're
Yeah.
getting Gakpo. And I was like, well, why would he come here? He'll have Real Madrid knocking on his door next week.
Yeah, he's about to go play in a World Cup. He will be in a shop window.
Yeah.
And lo and behold,
Yeah.
that lad had a decent World Cup and is now at Liverpool making a shed load of cash.
I must admit, I believe that they had a bid accepted, or at least close enough to accepted that they got to talk to him. But I don't believe that was anywhere near as close as the club made out.
Do you think?
I think that the whole it was like 96% done. I think is just a straight up fucking lie told for PR reasons. In the same way that I put it this way, I think we were a lot closer to getting to Ketelaere than we were Gakpo, and I don't think we're that close to getting to Ketelaere.
Do you think with Gakpo it was a Football Manager case of the bid has been accepted, the agent just says, yeah, he's not interested, your only option is walk away? It's like, can't I try and throw some money at him? No, your money is not good to me.
No, I think it was the one-off that, where it'll let you offer them something, but you could offer them max everything and they just say no.
Like,
I think I reckon that we probably did meet all his demands financially. If he said, I want 120 grand a week, I dare say we went, yeah, sure. But he will have just gone, no, I can go higher up the food chain than this.
Yeah.
By the way, just because this has come up, Ali saying, I wish we'd bought Keflin Thuram. I remember you saying that ages ago because I had no idea who he is. And when you said that you wanted him, I said, but he, like Marcus Thuram's a winger and why would he come here? And then you said, no, there's another one. And then I've looked into him and he does look he looks like a rate player. Fair, good shout. Right. So you've got him about a C. I reckon probably the same. I reckon that's fair. If Bielsa had gone at the end, like we always say, if Bielsa had gone after the first season in Premier League and just walked away, you could have almost said it was
tunnel just before full time.
And if Orta had done it the exact same summer, you'd probably be going, no, he did a really good job. But overall, and I also still think if it wasn't for him, shouting, hey, sack of the board, all of that shit in the crowd. I think that's one of the big problems. I think we'd all be a lot more forgiving if he wasn't being such a twat. And there's a lot to be said for that. When it's going badly, shut up. You have to, even if something that's being said on Twitter or if the crowd turns and you don't think it's fair, you just kind of have to shut up for a bit. Unless someone's saying something really horrible, if someone's threatening you or something like that, that's different. But if the crowd chanting sack the board, well, the crowd is well within the right to chant sack the board, even if he thinks it's unfair.
I mean, that also came because that was after the Bournemouth game, wasn't it? Because we'd won 2 out of the first 3, and then we didn't win a game for 2 months.
Yeah, it got chanted at like 3-1 down against Bournemouth, and the comeback happened.
And then the comeback came. I was about to call it came back. Then the comeback happened.
Well, it was in the past tense. Came back.
Yeah. But again, at that point, you kind of look and go, right, but we still ended up in the 3-1 down because of the fragility of these players that you've kind of grouped together here.
I know the strings behind, but it was weird. You said the words 3-1 and Chelsea scored.
Yeah. And at that point, you should bear in mind this is the first. What was it? Back end of November, or it's November anyway.
Because it's just before
we won like the first week in September. Didn't win in October.
And then there's Anfield and that Bournemouth game back to back.
So at this point, you've won 4 out of. I'm not even going to do it. You've won 4 out of, let's say, 15 games. It's probably not a bad shout in terms of the league. It's probably not a bad shout for that.
Yeah,
it's not great.
No,
this is not the time for you to be going. See, look, I told you so. It would be as if it's not Chile. If Radrizzani actually turned up last season and started singing Adam Forshaw's name after we'd won a game. You're like, right, I know he has played well here. This is a bigger issue than this.
Yeah.
And And look, I'm all for a man who is passionate about his job. I am all for it. As a Leeds fan, we love people who love it. That's great. But you have to have that self-awareness of this is not the time.
There is a lack of self-awareness. I mean, like Radrizzani and Kinnear quite often as well have shown quite a bit of a lack of self-awareness with some things they've said and some things they've done. It's probably worth mentioning that before we get on to the probable head coach change tomorrow. Rad's sending that DM that he obviously wants to get out to, is it Conor McGilligan? Saying this is shit and it's my fault and you all don't deserve this. I mean, I'll be honest, I'd rather he just didn't bother, because yeah, it is, and you would do like when I always say it's on Orta the most. Radrizzani obviously employs Orta, so he's sort of responsible for him. But Orta's the football guy. As much as he's pissed me off, I aren't going to blame the business guy for football decisions that much. When he's not invested enough and stuff like that you can blame him for, but the actual footballing decisions, I think, have to stay there. But him putting out something like that, it's as if he's trying to push it away, like, oh no, I'm just like you, I didn't see this coming. And the problem is, how did you not see it coming? Because we all did.
We told you. And that's it. And again, it comes back to last season when we all knew we needed another centre mid. We all knew we needed a backup striker because Bamford was going to get injured. Lo and behold, things happened.
Yeah. And
then he puts his, in my head, Adam Forshaw with the sunglasses emoji.
Yeah.
You can't turn around and pull the shocked Pikachu face then when it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Clearly, the man loves a glass of Merlot or something. When you have a glass, just put your phone the other side of the room.
Yeah.
It's easy. And it's just asking for trouble because there's no winning.
No, if you're doing brilliant, like when we literally got promoted, I said on our golf course video, because it's the only thing you could do during COVID, I said, thank you, Victor Orta, thank you, Andrea Radrizzani. And then probably just said, I love Marcelo Bielsa and think he's the greatest person who's ever lived and want him to adopt me and raise me as his own and all of that stuff. But that's as much credit as you're going to get as an owner. Yeah, you have done well, thank you.
You've done,
but if
you're doing what you should be doing.
Yeah, you can't expect him to be singing your name every week. It's weird if you're singing the owner's name every week. I mean, it was weird when Chelsea were doing it for Roman Abramovich. It was very weird. I still think the weirdest one I've seen is Wolves fans singing for George Mendes. That's the weirdest one I've seen. You're cheering for an agent. That's weird.
I mean, and you're also talking
but he did do a good job for him.
You're also talking about a club who, very historically sang the name of the chairman, and it went so horribly wrong.
Yeah,
and we sort of had and then we sort of had a distrust of owners, apart from a group of people who seem to like Cellino far more than they ever should have done, which I never quite understood. But that's for a different time. I
got that for a couple of months. I could get it for a couple of months because he was different and he had a bit of fuck it about him, and he'd just say things, and that's charming for a bit.
But so we are a club that has been burnt before. So yeah, we're always going to be a bit wary of who owns us. As much as any other club. So if you're doing your job, good. Don't tell us about it. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, except people meeting you outside the ground, shaking your hand and saying, pleased to meet you. You might even get a thank you. That's as good as it's getting. They're not going to treat you like a football person.
No.
Because you're not. and that's just the way it's supposed to be. So back to football, people. We set one up for tonight because we thought that this would be done, and to be honest, I'm very surprised it isn't. But all the stories are saying this is all going to get announced tomorrow morning, and it's done.
I mean, have you listened to the Phil Hay podcast today?
Today's Tuesday, isn't it? So the
Monday Club.
The 15-minute one from yesterday. Yes, I have.
Yeah, very tough to sack a man around his birthday, as it turns out with having Gracia. Bless him.
So they have left it to tomorrow.
Yeah,
we're having
bury it at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Well, that's when the Allardyce thing came out, and there it is. We've slipped his name out there for the first time, and I avoided saying it. So yeah, in the morning, sounds like Gracia's gone. Gracia has made some decisions I liked early on. He has made plenty that I don't like. He has been too negative, all of that stuff. I sort of nothing having Gracia. It's not his fault, really.
It's like the big. Obviously, there are much bigger things than him going on.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks that man is suffering from PTSD from the Crystal Palace game or something. Like he just seems to have been.
I still think something happened at halftime. I can't think. I've spent ages thinking about it. I cannot think of another reason. Whether it was the fight that was rumoured or something like that, or whether it was something else, something happened at halftime in that game.
But, it's that weird thing. Do you think? And I was thinking about this earlier. Do you think the Wolves' performance was sort of a warning as to what was to come in terms of the way we felt a bit for a little bit?
Yeah. I think it was.
Yeah, I was just looking at it going, it's weird how we did. Oh.
Because that went 3-0 to 3-2 very quickly, and they should have probably scored again.
Yeah.
And then we get one in like the 96th minute. I think that was probably a warning. Because there was plenty of people saying that the underlying numbers weren't good and stuff under him. But to be at that point in the situation we're in, I didn't really care about that. But this mentally falling apart thing in this kind of situation is just you can't have it.
No, I looked because I got to go to the Southampton game, and watching it, it was very
Championship.
Like strangely for two teams near the bottom. You were watching this game where it's like we are in control of this game, but we're not really creating a whole lot.
Yeah.
Like if we'd have lost that game, it would have been criminal.
Yeah.
But in terms of what we
created,
but in terms of what we actually created from that game, it wasn't a whole lot.
No, because that's the one that Firpo scuffs in, isn't it?
Yeah. Hero, Junior Firpo. And I think the one game where you look I think he completely got it right was the Brighton game, because that's where a lot of fans got on at the team because we weren't pressing them.
Yeah.
But the plan to stand off there worked. Like a 2-2 draw against Brighton was a really good result for us.
Yeah.
And that started off. We got the point there. We got the win at Southampton, and we lost to Chelsea. You picked up the points in the game. We won the game we should have won. We got a good point against a good team, and we lost to a £7 billion team at this point, or whatever it costs.
Yeah. It's a shame we couldn't face this Chelsea. We'd have beat this Chelsea.
Yeah. And again, up until halftime at the Crystal Palace game, you kind of looked at the results and went, well, these have all pretty much gone how they should. We beat teams we should have beat. We beat Forest, beat Southampton, and who else did we beat round then? And we got a couple of draws, and then we lost to Arsenal. No shame in that they were They had not yet bottled it. Again, if we'd have played Arsenal a couple of weeks ago, we might have got a point against them. That run of 3 draws they got. But my word, when it fell apart, it was...
It's gone quick, hasn't it?
Like, out of nowhere. And again, like, there are certain, we talked earlier about the changes you could have made during a game. And look, I wish Gracia was a manager that when we were losing games that had a bit of a, no, fuck it, we need to go for this. We need to go get some points here. That clearly wasn't his style, but you also have to it begs the questions, certain ones about him and his lack of inclusion of Nonto up until last week and bringing him off in games fairly early.
I think there's something there's more to that.
Yeah. The fact that we have this £35 million striker now, whether he's actually worth 35 million is obviously up for debate. But
be a short debate, and no would win.
But you have this striker on your bench who, for all these games we've been losing, very rarely made an appearance.
Yeah,
and yet, we spoke about it with the Fulham game. He played the majority, if not all, of that FA Cup game. Had a good game and was really unlucky not to get a goal from that game. Was Rutter. But since Liverpool, there's been sight and the sound of him. He's just on the bench.
So I did say on Twitter, admittedly I'd had a couple of beers, so I was a bit bolder. I did say after the Bournemouth game, you know what, fuck it, I think I would sack him. And it's just because I was looking at us thinking, and I said this after the Liverpool game, if we keep defending like this, we might not get another point. And obviously we did get one against Leicester. But I definitely couldn't see us getting another win. By the sounds of it, nor could anyone else. The reason that I was thinking, sod it, let's just sack him and do something a bit mental and hope to get through on vibes, is because I don't have a better idea. And gun to my head, do I think Javi Gracia could get more than 1 point from these 4 games? No, I don't. No, so I don't mind, even though it's a ridiculous time to sack someone, I can sort of see why.
I mean, with Gracia, clearly we weren't as potent going forward, and that is saying something because famously we created chances under Marsh that we did not take.
Yeah. No, it's one thing to give him. We did. I'm not sure the word is created, but we definitely had chances.
Yeah. But we also weren't set up so defensively solid that you thought, well, if we're not creating anything, at least we'll hold teams out. And ultimately, I don't know, but if you decided for the last 4 games, right, we need some points, we're just going for it. We can't defend our way out of this situation, so we might as well use the strengths that we have, focus on Harrison, Nonto, Somerville, Bamford and Rodrigo, and hope to God they can outscore West Ham.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there is
it's as valid a tactic as any.
There's a comment in here, it's Brenda's ghost. Can see us beating Spurs. To be fair, Spurs are so mental that maybe.
I text into Radio Leeds after the game, and I just finished it with, I know, right? Big time fight, and it got read out.
Wow, it must have been. No, I was thinking it must have been years since you've done something like that.
Oh God, yeah. And it was just a case of Gracia needs to go. This is failing miserably. I don't know what you replace him with, but it can't keep being this.
Well, when you looked at it, was one of your joke answers Big Sam?
In my head, it was like, right, Cooper, Forshaw, and Dallas.
I legitimately did say Adam Forshaw on Twitter. Admittedly, I'd had a few beers.
Do you just have the 3 senior leaders in the team and just think, right, let them choose the 11 that are, and even if it includes themselves? Admittedly, if Stuart Dallas picked himself at this stage, I would have to question that. But, pick the 11 lads you look at every day in the changing room and think they are up for this fight.
Who do you want in the battle with you?
Yeah, Darko JB. Get him and 10 others.
Stand by you.
Do I think Sam Allardyce can make a difference at this point? Who fucking knows?
I'll go as far as saying I do not think this is going to help. But I am a bit in. Fuck it.
Between Newcastle, West Ham and Spurs, could we George Graham our way to 3 points between those 3 games and just somehow stay up through 3 draws and 1 defeat?
What I would say is, if Leicester had just hired Sam Allardyce with 4 games left, my brain would be saying they're going to get 6 fucking points.
This is it. But you never think that about your own team, do you?
No, it wouldn't be a logical thing. Like, logically, that doesn't make any sense. I watched that West Brom team he took over. They were bad before he took them over, and he made them much worse.
Yeah. I'd argue that I think they had a worse squad than we did.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Yeah, well, no, that's not even probably fair. That's definitely fair.
If he can get them to be a solid enough defence, look, there is absolutely no reason why this group of players and this is absolutely just on paper, there is absolutely no reason why they can't beat West Ham.
Yeah, West Ham have got a better squad than us, but it's not such a big difference that it's not possible to beat.
There are Newcastle and Man City I am pretty much writing off. There is a team pressing to win the title and a team pressing to qualify for the Champions League for the first time since 2003.
Yeah. Newcastle is possible but unlikely. Man City, they say you should never say never. I'm saying never. In the words of Chris Rock.
I think Allardyce should do the training this week. I don't think he should be at the Man City game. Skip that one. Start at Newcastle.
No, be there. I want him to. One of the things I want him to do, because he is good at this, I want him to spend half of his time just doing set pieces. Because that is one thing that he is. There is a body of evidence. He is good at that.
Yeah.
Do that. I could easily see Sam Greenwood being in the team for that very reason.
Yeah.
Because he'll be playing for set pieces, and that's our best chance of him. I could really see that being the case. So I've sort of got it as a couple of questions in here. Did you have any faith that Javi Gracia would get the necessary points?
No.
Do you think we have a better chance with 4 games of Big Sam?
Yeah.
Not a good chance, a better one.
I think we do. The thing with our setup for even when we won games, is that we were still a very passive team.
Mm.
It just consisted of drop and drop a bit more. Now Brendan Aronson steps up, drop. And I never quite understood that. It worked for Brighton that having Aronson and Bamford press at very specific triggers.
Yeah.
But there were times when we dropped, but we weren't hard to play through.
Yeah. That's a problem.
It's like, and I think Allardyce can certainly instill that. Whether he can instill it well enough in this short space of time to make a difference, I don't know. Ultimately, I think you are preparing this team for West Ham in a couple of weeks. Is what he's preparing this team for.
I definitely think, as much as we are at a stage of the season where you cannot write off games, you can't. But I am still writing off Man City away because I genuinely would not be shocked if that game finishes 8-0. Like I wouldn't.
The thing with Newcastle is, and we have showed it this season, that if you there was luck to this as well, which is a big fact. Meslier had a great game. Kieran Trippier, for whatever reason, decided he couldn't put a cross in for love nor money that day. But there is the off chance that they won't perform and Leeds will lift themselves for an occasion.
Maybe they'll get a bit nervous because they're chasing the Champions League and stuff like
that. And you can't legislate for that going into a game.
Be typical for Leeds to take 8 points for the next 4 games. If we get 8 points for the next 4 games, I think that's less likely than us getting 9. Because that 8 points involves at least a draw away at Man City.
Oh dear, yeah. Who knows? Because I look at all the teams around us. I look at their fixtures, and I keep thinking I keep thinking West Ham are surely going to burn out at some point. That this is a lot of football they're playing in stressful situations in a short space of time. Surely they are going to burn out at some point. But they seem to have hit decent form. It's bad that I'm even looking at Southampton's fixtures. They are, with goal difference, essentially 7 points from safety.
No, I think Southampton are dead. I am willing to say that, but I think it's 2 from the other 4, and I genuinely think of those we are most likely to go down. Of those 4, like I do. I want to be wrong. I'm dying to be wrong. I will be so happy if I'm wrong, but. Actually, I'll be really happy on the day, and then I think the day after, it won't be like when we stayed up at Brentford last season. I was happy about that for weeks. I think if we do it this time, I'll be really happy on the day it happens, and then I'll just go back to being annoyed at how mismanaged it's been. So we both think. I think with much of a muchness, I don't think bringing in Allardyce is going to change really anything about its chances. You think slightly better. I definitely don't think it's gone down, which is why I'm not upset about it, really. There's the annoyances and everything. But if you take a step back and look at it, from above, imagine this is a virtual club. This isn't Leeds United. This is just a football club. Going from Marcelo Bielsa to Sam Allardyce in 14 months is pretty much the most objectively fucking hilarious thing a football club could do.
Oh dear.
Like, have you seen these? He can't even have Sammy Lee as his assistant.
Is it Chris Armas?
No, Sammy Lee is on jury duty. And obviously, when it's only a 4-week job, if you're out for 2 weeks, that's that. No, it has been said, apparently his assistant is going to be Carl Robinson, the ex-MK Dons, Oxford United boss, who's been linked with us 1 billion times. He has been brought in. And have you seen the rumoured contract for Allardyce?
No.
4 games, £500,000. If we stay up, 2.5 million bonus. And you know what?
It's good money if you can get it.
Fuck it. If we stay up, give him it. Fine, whatever. And I hope, there's a bit of me hopes, because this is the funniest way for it to happen. We get like 2 points that are both complete shithoused and undeserved, and we stay up with it. I mean, he doesn't win a game and gets £3 billion for 4 games.
Yeah.
Bielsa to Allardyce is nearly as bad as O'Leary to Wise. In terms of as a person, O'Leary to Wise is definitely worse. In terms of footballing styles, I would argue this is a bigger. We have, if Allardyce keeps us up, I'll vote for him as Prime Minister. Better than what we've got.
Yeah, because I tell you what,
it strikes me as really, really liberal and lefty, does Allardyce.
Why did he lose the England job again?
He was just trying to get around some rules, mate.
Listen. So are they all during COVID. So are they all.
Yeah. So we have done a long podcast here. I figured that would happen. We are in better spirits than I thought we'd be. We should probably cut it here and then do a shorter one later in the week to talk about Man City. And this will have all been confirmed, and we'll probably have a bit more to say. So right now, gun to your head, do we stay up?
Fuck it, yes.
No. But I like the optimism, mate. So that will do us for episode 214 of the Mighty Whites podcast. I've been Jax here.
I mean, Casey, have a good one.
In a